Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back from the ad break. You are still watching Prime Live. Up next, I have a very interesting interview with Ayesha Vahed, who is a dedicated journalist, attorney, and a legal reporter. And she will be joining us to discuss an important fundraising lunch. Now, this event taking place at Cafe Rivera in Killarney, it's going to feature Dr. Fatima Hendricks sharing her powerful, experiences abroad, the Global Sumud Flotilla. Now, together, they will highlight the significance of the Palestinian struggle for freedom and also why it's a crucial time for us to continue supporting Palestine. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much for joining us, Aisha, and welcome to Prime Live.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and shukran for having me.
Jazakallah so much. Now, can you please tell us, what inspired you to organize this fundraising lunch, and also how does it contribute to the Palestinian cause?
Absolutely. So we know that there's been a ceasefire, and I say ceasefire as a very loose term because we already know that enough aid is not being let in. The terms are being changed. Palestinians are still being killed. People are getting bodies back that are charred. Families have to deal with psychological, physical, emotional damage. So even though there's a so-called ceasefire, there's a long, long way to go for Palestinians, and most of them still don't have access to basic rights like water. So this particular fundraiser is through Gift of the Givers, and it's to fund desalination plants in Gaza, which we've been doing for the last 2 years, and to just give people dignity and access to those most basic rights as they start going back to their homes.
Mashallah. And tell us about how your work as a journalist, intersects with your activism for Palestine.
It's actually how I started reporting. I was practicing as an attorney, and then the genocide began, and the case came to The Hague, where I was based. And people are just not telling the truth. So we didn't have enough media covering the case. There was so much of distorted media. In fact, there was so much of support for Israel, who were the aggressors, and that led me to start legal reporting and journalism. So it had everything to do with Palestine, and inshallah, it will continue to just be a source of truth telling because we don't have enough of there out there. We've realized how biased the media is in the genocide, and that's what we need to change. So anybody going to journalism needs to change the narrative and needs to make sure that the world knows what the truth is and what's actually happening, especially in marginalized communities.
And can you, tell us about, what role you think storytelling plays in advocating for social justice causes like this one?
It plays a huge role. As we know, we're living in a time of social media, of screens, of a fast narrative, of a click. Everybody wants the story quickly and they want it in the easiest way possible. People don't even read or watch the news anymore. They're more likely to click on social media to get updates on their daily events. And we do know that this is the way that the genocide was broadcasted. It's the first time a genocide was watched in live broadcast. So we have such a huge tool at our disposal, and we can use it to tell the story of those who can't tell their stories. And that's what Palestinians have done. They've reached out to all of us. Here, tell it for me, narrate it to the world, and they've videoed as much as they can. We know how many journalists have been martyred. I mean, even after the ceasefire, we just lost Saleh, Anas Sharif. Important journalists have sacrificed their lives for storytelling. So storytelling plays the most important role, but we should also remember that it's the biggest threat to those trying to oppress, to the occupation, to the aggressors, because when the story is not told, it's very easy to continue with oppression, but when the world knows, then there's a fight for justice.
And can you maybe tell us about, how you believe events like these, help raise awareness about, the Palestinians and also just support for Palestinian people? Because everybody's trying to do whatever it is that they can to show support towards Palestine. But I want us to highlight, the event part of it on how they contribute positively to the support of Palestinians.
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned before, when we hear the word ceasefire, a lot of the time people could be under a misconception that things are immediately getting better. But for people in Gaza, it's just starting. They're just starting to rebuild. They're going back to an absolutely demolished Gaza. They don't have homes, they don't have basic needs or rights. And so, this is the time where they need us the most. This is the time when you need to mobilize. And I think because we have such busy lives and you can get so easily caught up in, everyday life, this is an important reminder. And when you're there firsthand, you're sitting and you're listening to Dr. Hendricks, who's recounting her firsthand experience from being in an Israeli prison. And she was there for a limited amount of time. But she'll tell you this is what Palestinians are going through every single day. Those kind of experiences help you to understand just how grave the problem is and how every voice is needed in order to find a lasting solution and peace for the Palestinian people.
Most definitely. And before we move into, Dr. Hendricks' story, I want us to, because you mentioned something so important about the ceasefire. As a journalist, obviously you would have the perfect information for this. Can we start celebrating to say there is a ceasefire? Because we're hearing so many stories, it's a ceasefire, and the next thing we hear that no, it's actually not. They're still bombing the Palestinian people. Are we at a place where we can start saying there is a ceasefire in Palestine?
I think what we can do is we can have a cautious moment of relief for Palestinians. So we can say, it's not as intense as it was.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them can get to go back to their homes. The killing is not as intense as it was, but we're nowhere near a proper ceasefire, or we're nowhere near the position where they're going to realize their human rights. So we are happy for them, for those that feel a bit safer, for getting that moment to catch their breath. But Palestinians are still being killed. From the day that the ceasefire was announced, families are being killed. And we have become so desensitized that now when we hear that 3 Palestinians are killed in a day, we sort of sigh with relief. Oh, only three, not 300. But that means that there is no ceasefire yet. The same with the 8 trucks, at least there's 300 going in. The agreement was 600 though. So we know from the past that Israel has violated their own ceasefire agreements time and time again. They have their hostages back. We've seen the condition that the bodies have been returned, the Palestinian bodies, to families, and the mutilation and basically the violation of any sort of human rights. So I think it's very early to celebrate. We sigh in relief for the Palestinians, but now is the time to mobilize and make sure we fight for them to have an actual ceasefire.
And can we talk about, Dr. Hendricks and why you thought it was very important to have her at the event? And what do you hope, the attendees can take away from hearing her story?
So, Dr. Hendricks advocates for disability rights, and I think that's something special about her as one of the Global Sumud participants. And that's been what she's been advocating for from Tunisia from before she left. People with disabilities are often marginalized. We know that that happens in South Africa as well. It happens worldwide. We often lose sight of the fact that there's a daily struggle for people with disabilities. But imagine having a disability like not being able to hear or smell or see in a war zone. And that's what she was advocating for. It's so difficult to live through a genocide daily, but when you have a disability, you can't walk, you don't know when a bomb is coming, you don't know when danger is around. That has been absolutely heartbreaking to witness. And Dr. Hendricks has had a first-hand, experience with she had fallen ill before, and she'd lost the use of her limbs herself for a while. And because of that, it's something so close to her heart. And so when she gives that experience and she talks about it and how it affects Palestinians, she's vowed to dedicate her time to making sure that those people that need that help, or those rights that need to be realized, are given more sort of attention by the community in South Africa and everywhere else.
I mean, thank you for sharing that, because I think, like many others, I think when we speak about the Palestinian struggle, we don't think of it from a perspective of people that are actually disabled. How unfair this whole experience must be. I'm not saying it's fair on the others, but how much more intense it is for people that are helpless. People that can't really do anything for themselves. They can't run. They can't do anything. And imagine if you are a disabled person, and now you have your entire family has been killed, and you are left alone to just make a way for yourself. It must be so heartbreaking and very difficult for them. So I really, really believe that she will help the attendees to understand the Palestinian struggles, and especially from a perspective of those who cannot do much for themselves. But as an activist and someone that's passionate about the Palestinian issue, what other ways can you share, to our viewers to get into, so that they can make a difference for the Palestinian freedom?
I think firstly, use your voice wherever you can. So use it on social media, use it at work, educate South Africans. I was in Europe for a while and I came back, and what I've realized is, as a Muslim community, we've always been close to the Palestinian struggle, but there are so many other South Africans that want to know more about it. And once they do learn more about it, they really, really want to help realize the human rights of Palestinians, because it's so close to apartheid, but on a much larger scale. So we need to go out into communities, and this is something that Dr. Hendricks has advocated for as well on her tour here, is that we can't be in the same communities all the time. We need to go out. We need to educate the majority of our country on what the Palestinian struggle is about, the likeness to apartheid, why we have to realize the human rights, what Nelson Mandela thought about the struggle. So education is very important. Fundraising will always be important because, as we know, Gaza is demolished now. People are left with absolutely nothing. And then, sharing the message on social media as the journalists and the Palestinians have asked us to, because a lot of people have stopped posting now that there's a ceasefire. We can't stop posting because then those stories won't be told, and then we are giving the oppressor the tool to start committing those atrocities again. And I think what we've witnessed over the last 2.5 years, especially with European communities, with the countries, with the people, with the governments, is because the story was so widely circulated, it made a lot of changes. And that's from governmental to grassroots movements. So we need to mobilize in every way possible, make the noise, use your voice, fundraise, and educate people.
And now I want to speak about the event itself, because I'm sure after this interview and the words that you've told us and what to expect, people are now obviously anticipating the event and they want to attend. Can you share with us the details in terms of the venue, the ticket prices, and the times?
Absolutely. So the event is next week, Tuesday, the 21st of October. It's at Cafe Rivera in Killarney Mall. It's a ladies' event. It's a lunch with Dr. Hendricks where she will focus on her experience in the Global Sumud Flotilla. And this is so important for people to hear about because what Israel did to the participants of the flotilla is just a drop in the ocean to what it does to Palestinians every day. But it just shows you that Israel actually violates the human rights of anyone. And then she's going to talk about what it was like to be in prison in Israel as well when they were detained, disability rights, and how we can move forward as a community. So it's from 11:30 to 1:30 next Tuesday. Everybody is welcome. The ticket price is 190 Rand per person. And the proceeds are going to water provision through Gift of the Givers. They will facilitate it in Gaza. They already have the infrastructure there. They have the desalination plants. We chose water because it's something that is a basic human right. It has so much to do with the dignity. It has so much to do with being a Muslim, cleanliness. There's so many things that water symbolizes for us religiously, culturally, human rights wise. So that's where the proceeds are going to go. And it's definitely not to be missed because to hear those experiences firsthand, and after being with Dr. Hendricks and the Global Sumud Flotilla in Tunisia and then coming back, it's a life-changing experience. You'll never feel the same way about things after you hear it firsthand from a South African telling you how they were treated by Israel, what we need to do, what work is still left to do.
Jazakallah for sharing that with us. Now, as we wrap up the conversation, Aisha, what is the one thing you'd like our audience to remember about the Palestinian struggle, and how can they make a positive impact?
Remember that the struggle is very far from over. It's in fact just starting. Every single professional, every person involved in a community drive, whether you're at home, whether you're working in a medical field, in a legal field, whatever it is, you can definitely take some time, take an hour or two out of your week to fight for their human rights. They're going to need teams going to Gaza now. They're going to need people to document. They're going to need teachers. They're going to need psychologists. So sign up. I know IMASA has a program running where you can sign up now and volunteer your services. Try and do something active as part of a community or even within your family. And I have to say as well that Palestine, yes, they've shown us what injustice is for the world, but we need to remember all those countries that are suffering a similar injustice. So remember Congo, remember Sudan, remember Yemen, remember what's happening in Lebanon right now. All of those things, and especially, from an Islamic point of view, it's a duty for us as a ummah. Remember that even, speaking out to the injustice is the bare minimum that we can do, but we need to act, and we need to act as one.
I mean, Jazakallah so much, Aisha, for dedicating your time to speak to us and for just letting us know or giving us more details about the fundraising lunch that you will be hosting. And good luck with everything.
Barakallahu feek, and it's always a pleasure. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Viewers at home, that was Ayesha Vahed, who is a dedicated journalist, attorney, and a legal reporter. And we were just speaking about the Palestine fundraising lunch that will be happening next week, Tuesday. Make sure that you head over there, so that you can see a different perspective, learn a thing or two, so that you can continue, being an activist and speaking for the truth of the Palestinians. But on that note, let's head over to a quick break. We shall be with you shortly.